I guess what we see is that there's lateralisation of the brain. So there's some areas where we pick up sensory information. So like I see things over this side, they go to left side of the brain, from the right they go to the right, and the same with the feeling and the hearing. And so those primary areas will pick up information from one side of the body, and they're not really lateralised. They're doing the same thing on both sides of the brain. But then we start to process that information more specifically. And then as it goes to these secondary and the association areas where we process this more, then it gets lateralised. So an example of that on the visual system could be that we process vision. We've got the left cortex here, first of all in the centre part there. As it comes round to the left side here, we're looking at more like colours and patterns. And then we've got an area on the bottom here of the temporal lobe, sort of feeding round, which is all about symbols. So it's looking at the details of symbols. This area just here is looking at faces. So we've got a whole area devised for recognising someone's face and putting a name to it. When we look on the other side, the right is, so the left is doing like high contrast. It's looking at detail. Okay. The right side is going to be looking more at lower contrast, quick changing things. So it's doing motion. It's kind of doing shapes and how things move around here. Then in that area for faces, it's not looking at the detail of the face. It's looking at the whole face and how it changes. So it's understanding the emotion that's being conveyed in the face rather than categorising who it is. Okay. We get around there, it's then doing how we use things rather than what they are. So we see that the right side of the brain is all about where things are, and it's getting the big picture. Whereas the left side is processing a lot more of what things are. We see the same in the auditory system. The motor system, the right has a bias for gross motor control, whereas the left has got a bias for fine motor, so that's doing like handwriting and speech. Okay. So we can see how all the language processing is going on the left side. So the same broad functions on both sides, but then with very specific differences as well in terms of how they're applied. Lateralisation. Yeah. And we tend to see that kids on the autistic spectrum are having lower functioning on the right side of the brain. So they struggle to pick up their interoception. Their sensory processing is often more of an issue. And then their ability to pick up things like faces, tone of voice, body language are all lower. Diminished. So these are right-sided. Right-sided. And this is autism, you said, and the other? You tend to see ADHD with a bias more for the right side. Obsessive compulsive disorder and Tourette's tend to be all right side underfunctioning. Okay. So depending on which parts it is, and there's a bias for sensory processing. It depends which senses and quite what, because you could argue that some of dyslexia is sensory processing with visual and auditory issues that they get. Okay. Whereas dyslexia is a left-sided brain issue. That's then struggling to recognise the letters or pick up the phonics, or put the phonics to the letters. So you've got these auditory and visual processes of what things are on the left side that aren't working, that make it harder to then process the language and read and spell, etc. So as we've understood the functional neurology of the brain a lot more, we can map, there are maps essentially for each of the different conditions as to which sides are working well and which sides perhaps are inhibited. Is that fair? That's definitely a fair statement. And it's not always like it's completely all parts of one side and the other, but there's this pretty strong bias, and there's been research looking at like EEGs, MRIs, PET scans, cognitive assessments, behavioural checks, and then we can do sensory motor assessments as well, and you tend to see the same patterns of left-right coming up with the kids with these issues. Okay.